I'm Craven, and I need your thoughts. I'm out here on the water. It's a beautiful morning. Got a little bit of coffee and just enjoying this beautiful summer day. It's time for another video, though. This one is on two different things, but they're the same. One needs water, one doesn't. Talking about root cellars. Now, there's a history of root cellars that go back as much as 40,000 years ago in Aboriginal Australia. Aboriginal Australians used the earth to store their food. They took advantage of the coolness of the earth to store long-term some items. Now, the root cellar that we know has its history, goes back into the 17th century, but there's two kinds. We always see everybody building one and that's their thing, but there's two kinds of root cellars. The first root cellar, one that requires low humidity and dark. Okay, in there you're going to store your grains, your items that don't need to be wet. Your grains, there's several different things that you want to keep. Your canned goods, your mason jars, canning materials, those kind of things, you want to keep in a cool, dry place. The other kind is one that is a high humidity. Now, the high humidity ones, you're going to store your fresh produce in, your carrots, your corn on the cob, the other things. The ones that, if they are stored in a dry place, are just going to dry out and be useless. But there's a problem with the moist ones, the moist root cellars, and that's mold and mildew. And I see people fighting mold and mildew, and they're spraying chemicals and they're fighting the mold and mildew in the root cellar. Our forefathers didn't have such chemicals, and we may not have chemicals of that nature in the future. So how do you get around that? Well, they knew to wipe down their produce with straw. Straw is a natural fungicide, and so in wiping down the straw, or wiping down the produce with straw, wiping down the walls, keeping straw in the root cellar, restricted the growth of mold and mildew. So they solved the problem naturally, as we're going to have to do sometime in the future, maybe if the grid goes down, or those of us going off grid. And the other one is in the dry root cellar. Our forefathers still use straw, but they use straw there for a different reason. They use straw, very dry straw, to absorb the excess moisture. And they would stuff bags of burlap or whatever else with extra straw, leaves, grasses, things of that nature that would easily absorb moisture, and place that in the dry root cellar to further reduce the humidity. After a day or so of having that stuff in there, they'd take that out, put in fresh stuff. If they had opened up the door, if they'd left the door closed for a while, you might go 4 or 5 days before you until you get the humidity where you want it, and then you can easily maintain it by changing out dry grasses, straw in the dry root cellar in order to maintain the humidity level in there that you're trying to get to. So two different kinds of root cellars, two different ways of going about it. I only see us ever using one of those two, and it's a problem because we need both. We need one place to store our grains, our seeds, our items that don't need to be wet, such as canned goods and our canned items in mason jars and things of that nature. And in the wet root cellar, we need to be able to make sure that our vegetables, fresh vegetables, are not drying out completely, but also don't grow mold and mildew. That way we end up having to throw it all away. And the way we do that is with straw. And so that little tidbit of information I don't see anywhere on the net. I hope that you find that useful in your root cellar, if your plans for that. And I'm Craven. Give me your thoughts. Hit the like button. Comments, of course, are always welcome. And the subscribe button. Make sure to push that. I appreciate y'all. Bye.